I've started a new channel called Lunila Tales. Please subscribe and watch my best stories there. Link is in the description. The divine champion of the Thrakul descended in a beam of golden fire, wings spread, halo blazing brighter than the sun. The alien priests chanted in trembling reverence, their voices shaking the cavern walls of Exo 9. The ground quaked beneath the human exploration camp, equipment rattled, and the scientists screamed for cover. And then Corporal Mason Hale, half asleep behind his sniper scope, muttered, "Oh, hell no," and pulled the trigger. The shot cracked through the stormy air like a punctuation mark from an angry god. The bullet pierced the golden light, tore through the celestial armor, and blew the head off the so-called divine champion before anyone could even say first contact. For half a second, everyone in the cavern froze, the priests mid-chant, the scientists mid-scream, and the champion mid-divinity, as a spray of liquid light hissed into nothingness. Mason lowered his rifle slowly, blinking as the echo died. "Well," he said, scratching his chin through his helmet, "I guess diplomacy's cancelled." The silence that followed was so deep it felt like the universe was holding its breath. Then, all at once, it screamed back. The priests wailed, their chants turning into howls. The champion's body crumpled, light still flickering from the wound, and then something black and electric began to spill from it, crawling like smoke made of thought. "Corporal Hale, what the hell did you do?" yelled Dr. Kira Vance over the comms, her voice shrill with disbelief. Mason shrugged, even though she couldn't see it. "He looked hostile," he said, watching the black energy slither across the floor like an oil slick seeking revenge. "He looked like a demigod with an ego problem. I solved both." Kira ran into view, her white exosuit reflecting the fading glow. Around them, the alien temple groaned as if something ancient had been offended. "You just shot a deity," she hissed, scanning the fallen form. "Not a soldier. A deity. Do you even understand what that means?" Mason chambered another round. "Sure do. It means they bleed." But the body didn't stay still. The black smoke thickened, twisting in the air, whispering in a dozen alien tongues. Mason raised his rifle again, but the smoke darted toward him, faster than light, and before he could react it slammed into his chest plate. His visor cracked, his body convulsed. He saw stars, galaxies, eyes, memories, everything and nothing at once. Then it was gone. When he came to, the priests were kneeling before him. Their eyes glowed with fanatic devotion. "Behold," one of them rasped, its voice like wind through dead stone. "The champion lives, reborn in mortal flesh." Mason blinked. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." He turned to Kira, who was frantically checking his vitals. "Tell me they're joking." She looked at her scanner, then at him. "Your neural readings are off the charts. Like, literally rewriting themselves." "Mason, I think it's inside you." Mason groaned. "Fantastic. I shoot a god, and now I'm a haunted house." He tried to stand, but the moment he did, the ground erupted. A massive beam of light shot into the sky, splitting clouds for miles. The Thrakul priests began to chant again, this time in worship of him. Across the comms, the mission commander's voice broke through static. "Hale, report. What's happening down there?" Mason coughed. "Short version? I might have assassinated divinity and accidentally applied for the position." The commander's voice fell silent for a beat. "You what?" Mason ignored him, staring as his hands began to shimmer faintly. A strange hum filled his skull, like a chorus buried beneath his thoughts. He could feel it, the pulse of something vast and ancient, whispering through him. The god wasn't dead. It had just moved in. Kira grabbed his arm. "We need to get you to the ship before that energy stabilizes. It's rewriting your DNA." Mason yanked free, shaking his head. No, you don't get it. If that thing's in me, leaving might just turn this whole planet into a light show." He looked up at the hovering priest. "And these guys already look like they're planning my coronation." A thunderous sound rolled across the horizon. The temple's upper vault began to split, revealing a massive construct buried beneath, a machine shaped like a cathedral and a weapon at once. The priests bowed deeper, chanting his name now, not the gods. Hail Kor! Hail Kor! The new voice of Thrakul. Congratulations, Kira said grimly. They've made you their messiah. Mason groaned. That's great. Do messiahs get dental? But before she could respond, another ripple tore through the air. A holographic image flickered into life above them, the likeness of the god he'd shot, its form distorted but alive, flickering like an unfinished thought. It pointed directly at Mason. Thief of my divinity, it boomed, voice shaking the ruins, you will carry my burden until judgment comes. Mason took a half step back, then forward, trying to look unimpressed despite the terror gnawing at his bones. Listen, Sparkleface, he said, aiming his rifle at the ghostly visage. I don't do burden. I do bullets. He pulled the trigger again, but the shot passed straight through the hologram and shattered a sacred pillar instead. The priest screamed in outrage. The apparition smiled. You cannot kill belief, mortal. You can only become it. And with that, it vanished, leaving behind an echoing hum that burrowed straight into Mason's skull. Kira stared at him. We have to go. Now. Mason hesitated, looking around at the glowing walls, the priests, the collapsing structure, and the spreading light. Fine, he muttered. But next time someone starts chanting, I'm shooting sooner. They sprinted through the tunnels as explosions thundered behind them. Mason's mind pulsed with strange flashes, alien memories, cosmic wars, fragments of 1,000 dying prayers. Each vision hit harder than the last. At one point he stumbled, gripping his helmet. Kira, he gasped, I think it's talking to me. What's it saying? She shouted, hauling him toward the exit. It's saying I owe it a second chance. They burst into the open air, just as the temple behind them detonated in a blast of gold and shadow. Their ship loomed ahead, battered and half buried in dust. Mason collapsed on the ramp, chest heaving. Kira knelt beside him, scanning the strange light pulsing beneath his skin. You just doomed or saved an entire species, she whispered. I can't tell which. Mason gave her a weak grin. Join the club. He looked back at the burning ruins. The smoke curled into the shape of wings before fading into the dark sky. Next time, he muttered, I'm taking a vacation somewhere that doesn't worship bullets. Far above, the clouds parted for just a moment, and a single voice echoed faintly in his mind, amused, curious, divine. You cannot run from belief, Mason Hale. You've become its newest weapon. He closed his eyes, muttering to himself as exhaustion dragged him under. Yeah, well, I've got good aim. The explosion from the Thrakul temple had turned night into a storm of molten stone and shattered faith. The ruins burned behind them as the human research vessel, the Larkspur, lifted into the murky skies of XO9. Mason Hale sat slumped against the bulkhead, hands trembling, his reflection flickering faintly in his cracked visor. The glow under his skin hadn't faded, it pulsed like a second heartbeat. Every few seconds, sparks of alien light danced across his veins, as if his blood was struggling to decide whether it wanted to be human or divine. Kira Vance moved around him, barking orders at the Meddrones. Her usual calm had vanished, replaced with frantic urgency. The ship's interior lights flickered, as though the systems themselves were confused about what Mason had become. She jabbed him with a scanner, and it beeped furiously. You're off the charts, she muttered. Your cells are rewriting themselves faster than I can track. Whatever you absorbed back there, it's not done. Mason's head thudded against the metal wall. I told you. It's inside me. The god, the energy, the whatever it was. I can hear it whispering. Whispering? Kira repeated. Like voices. Not voices, he said, squinting as his pupils flared gold. Like ideas. Thoughts trying to become mine. It's like someone's updating my operating system without asking for permission. Before Kira could respond, the ship jolted violently. The pilot yelled over comms that the alien fleet was approaching. Through the viewport, Mason could see orbs of burning light streaking toward them, the Thrakul priest ships, small but packed with zeal and explosives. Mason's ears buzzed, not from the sound, but from a hum deep in his skull. A pulse of energy erupted from his chest, and for a heartbeat, every light on the ship went out. When they flickered back on, the enemy ships had vanished from the radar. The pilot screamed, "They're gone! Just gone!" Kira turned to Mason slowly. "What did you do?" He stared down at his hands, which were still glowing faintly. "I don't know. I got scared." Kira looked at the blank radar, then back at him. "Mason, scared doesn't make ships disappear." He gave a weak smile. "Guess it does now." As the ship broke through the planet's upper atmosphere, Mason felt something crawling inside his mind, a network of connections, distant signals stretching across stars. It was as if he could feel the heartbeat of entire galaxies. The sensation was intoxicating and terrifying. He gritted his teeth, trying to hold on to himself. "Kira," he said, his voice low, "if I start glowing brighter than the ship, shoot me." "Don't tempt me," she muttered, focusing on stabilizing his vitals. But her voice trembled. The command center on Earth picked up their transmission an hour later. The screen buzzed to life, showing the stone-faced mission commander, General Ivers. Behind him, scientists scrambled like ants over maps and equations. "Hail," Ivers said, his voice cold. "Explain why the Thrakul fleet is sending distress signals calling you a god." Mason sighed. "Because I shot their old one. Now I'm the sequel." Kira pinched the bridge of her nose. "General, the energy he absorbed is unlike anything we've seen. It's alive. It's using him as a host." "Containment protocol applies," Ivers said flatly. "You will return to orbit immediately. Hale is to be quarantined until we can analyze the screen glitched. For a moment, Mason saw something impossible, a reflection of himself projected behind Ivers. His face, multiplied, shimmering with the same golden light. The reflection looked straight at him, not at the camera. Then it smiled and vanished. "Ivers," Mason said, sitting up straighter. "You didn't see that, did you?" "See what?" the general replied. "Nothing," Mason muttered. "Just your good side." But his gut twisted. The thing inside him wasn't just power, it was presence. It was awake. When the transmission ended, Kira turned to him, whispering harshly. "Mason, something's happening. The interference from your body isn't localized. It's spreading through the comm network. It's rewriting data packets, transmitting patterns. Oh God, you're infecting the system." He stared blankly. "Wait, you're telling me I'm contagious? Like cosmic malware?" Kira nodded. "Exactly that." "Well," Mason said, rubbing the back of his neck, "guess that explains why the ship keeps calling me captain when I'm not." Kira wasn't amused. "If this spreads to Earth, it could rewrite human consciousness. You might not just end religions, Mason. You could start new ones." He tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. "I've been called worse things than inspirational." Suddenly, alarms screamed. A bright flash filled the corridor as a Thrakul boarding craft rammed into their ship. The hull split open with a screech of tearing metal. Mason grabbed his rifle instinctively. "Guess the cultists want an autograph." They poured in, dozens of robed figures, eyes burning with fanatic devotion. "All hail, Hail Kor," they cried, advancing. "Bearer of the divine pulse." Yeah, Mason said, ducking behind a console. "Hail this." He fired, dropping 3 of them before they even saw him move. But as he reloaded, a surge of light shot from his hand, vaporizing the next attacker completely. Kira froze. "Mason, your gun's not even on." He looked at his empty hands, the faint smoke curling from his fingers. "Great. I'm turning into a light show with anger issues." They fought their way to the engineering deck, sealing the doors behind them. The ship groaned, bleeding sparks. Mason leaned against the wall, panting, trying to ignore the hum in his chest that now felt almost happy. The voice inside him spoke for the first time in words he could understand. "You kill well, Vessel," it said softly. "You honor the faith you mock." "Get out of my head," Mason snapped aloud. Kira turned. "What?" "Nothing," he lied. "Just arguing with my roommate." The lights flickered again, and the ship's AI suddenly came online, voice distorted. Recognition pattern detected. Hail Core entity linked. Systems alignment complete. Worship protocol initiated. Kira slammed the control panel. "It's rewriting the AI too. Mason, we can't stop this." He clenched his fists, trying to focus on something human: pain, fear, guilt, anything that didn't feel like a sermon. "We need to get off this ship before I turn it into a flying church." Kira's eyes darted to the auxiliary skimmer docked nearby. "There's a short-range vessel. It might still work." They sprinted through the smoke, the AI chanting his name through every speaker. "Hail Core! Hail Core!" The irony wasn't lost on him. "I didn't even like church," he muttered as they climbed aboard. The skimmer detached just as the Larkspur erupted in a blinding explosion. Mason watched from the viewport, his reflection haloed by fire. "So," he said, voice shaking slightly, "I killed a god, blew up a temple, and now my ship thinks I'm the second coming. You think the day's going uphill from here?" Kira didn't answer. She was staring at the sensors, pale. "Mason," she whispered, "there's a signal coming from deep space. Massive. It's responding to you." He looked at her, then at the endless stars beyond. "What kind of signal?" She swallowed hard. "The kind that sounds like worship, multiplied by billions." Mason leaned back in his seat, closing his eyes as the hum inside him grew louder, almost like laughter. "Well," he said, half to himself, "guess I finally made an impression." The skimmer drifted through the darkness of space like a wounded insect, its engines coughing with every pulse of radiation. Mason Hale sat in the co-pilot's seat, eyes half closed, feeling the strange rhythm inside his body syncing with the hum of the ship. It was no longer a heartbeat. It was something else entirely, like an orchestra made of stars playing a song only he could hear. Every time he tried to tune it out, the melody changed, whispering fragments of languages that had no beginning or end. Kira Vance worked at the control panel, face lit by the dim glow of the monitors. She hadn't spoken much since they left the Larkspur behind. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted their course, trying to keep them hidden from whatever was tracking Mason. The silence between them felt heavy, broken only by the occasional flicker of static through the comms. Then, without warning, every screen on the skimmer lit up with his face. Dozens of copies of Mason Hale, each glowing with the same golden light that pulsed beneath his skin. He groaned, rubbing his temples. "Great. Even the universe is sick of me." The broadcast wasn't coming from the ship. It was coming from everywhere. Across the frequencies, through every known channel, a signal was repeating his name. Planets, stations, even passing cargo ships were receiving transmissions of Mason's image, his voice distorted into something divine. "The vessel lives," the broadcast declared in an alien tongue that somehow every listener understood. "The divine spark has chosen flesh. The new order begins." Kira stared at the screens, horrified. It's not just a signal. It's rewriting communication protocols. "Mason, you're being turned into a universal language." He blinked. "So I'm a cosmic Rosetta Stone now? Fantastic." But deep down, fear prickled beneath the sarcasm. The light under his skin flared, and he felt something stir inside him, a sense of vast, uncontainable connection. For an instant, he could feel millions of beings watching, praying, whispering his name. Each mind brushed against his like a cold breeze. It wasn't admiration. It was worship, and he hated every second of it. Kira slammed a switch, cutting power to the main receiver. The screens went black. "That's it. No more broadcasts. No more signals. We find a remote moon, land, and figure out how to stop this before you turn into an intergalactic meme. Mason grinned weakly. A meme with worshippers. There are worse fates. She shot him a glare sharp enough to pierce armor. This isn't funny, Hale. This thing inside you, it's spreading faith like a virus. People are going to start doing things in your name. He leaned back, staring at the stars. People always do stupid things in someone's name. I just never thought it'd be mine. Hours later, they landed on an abandoned mining outpost orbiting a dying red star. The facility was empty, long forgotten, its halls echoing with the ghosts of industry. Kira set up equipment in what used to be a storage bay, turning it into a makeshift lab. Mason sat on a crate, chewing on a protein bar and watching her work. He'd stopped glowing as brightly, but his eyes still shimmered faintly. Kira glanced at him. We need to test how much control you actually have over this energy. If it's feeding on attention, maybe we can weaken it. Mason raised an eyebrow. You mean like a celebrity scandal? She ignored the joke. Try focusing on something small. A tool, a panel, anything. See if you can manipulate it without exploding it. He sighed, lifting his hand toward a metal wrench on the table. He concentrated, trying to summon whatever force lived inside him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the wrench lifted into the air, spinning slowly. Mason grinned, triumphant, right before the wrench melted into liquid metal and splattered across the floor. Okay, he said. Progress. Sort of. Kira pinched the bridge of her nose. You just turned a wrench into soup. I'll put that on my resume. They ran more tests. Each attempt went worse than the last. A console caught fire. A containment field shattered. Once, Mason sneezed, and the entire outpost flickered in and out of existence for 3 terrifying seconds. When it reappeared, half the lights were dead, and Mason was laughing breathlessly. I think I broke physics. Stop finding this funny, Kira snapped. You could end up tearing reality apart. He looked at her, suddenly serious. You think I don't know that? Every time I blink, I see galaxies that don't exist yet. Every time I breathe, I feel something trying to pull me apart. I'm holding it together with sarcasm because the alternative is screaming. The anger in her eyes softened. For a moment, they were just 2 humans adrift in a universe that didn't care if they lived or died. Then, from the shadows of the corridor, a faint sound reached them. Chanting. Kira froze. Tell me that's just the ventilation system. Mason grabbed his rifle, creeping toward the sound. The chanting grew louder, words forming around his name. Hail Kor, bringer of light. Hail Kor, voice of eternity. They turned a corner and found a group of aliens kneeling in the dust, their eyes glowing faintly. They wore patched uniforms from the mining crew that once lived here. Somehow, the signal had reached even them. They looked up as Mason approached, faces twisted in awe. The vessel has come, one whispered. You've freed us from the silence. Yeah, that's great, Mason said, aiming the rifle. But could you maybe stop worshipping me? I'm terrible at public speaking. The aliens didn't move. One extended a trembling hand, offering him a small device, a holographic recording. When Mason activated it, a figure appeared in the light. The same being he had shot on Exo-9, the so-called Divine Champion. Its voice echoed through the room. The false light spreads, it said. The thief of divinity walks among you. Prepare the path for his undoing. The hologram faded, leaving silence. Kira looked at Mason. It's coming back. The real one. Mason ran a hand down his face. Of course it is. I shoot one god, I get 2 for the price of 1. The aliens began to murmur prayers, their eyes rolling back. Energy pulsed through the room, resonating with Mason's own. The connection between them flared uncontrollably. Their bodies lifted off the ground, caught in invisible light. Mason tried to step back, but the energy dragged him forward. His mind filled with images of worlds kneeling, temples rising, galaxies burning in devotion. Kira shouted his name, but he couldn't hear her anymore. For a brief, infinite second, he stood outside himself, seeing through every eye that worshipped him, feeling every thought that believed in him. The power was intoxicating. He could have commanded them, built an empire of faith across the stars. But beneath it all, he heard laughter. The same laughter that had echoed in his skull since the moment he pulled the trigger. He forced the power down, collapsing to his knees as the aliens fell unconscious. Smoke rose from his hands. Kira rushed to him, eyes wide. What happened? He looked up at her, trembling. They're not praying to me. They're praying through me. The god I killed, it's using me like a megaphone. Kira backed away, realization dawning in her eyes. Then it's not over. Mason wiped the blood from his nose, staring at the empty air where the hologram had been. No, he said quietly. It's just getting started. The mining outpost was silent except for the hum of dying machinery and the faint echo of Mason's breathing. Kira had patched the communications array enough to send a distress signal, though both of them knew what would come wasn't rescue, it would be containment. Mason sat in the corner, staring at his reflection in a cracked piece of glass. His eyes weren't just glowing anymore, they were alive, swirling like miniature galaxies. Every few seconds, light pulsed through his veins, tracing constellations beneath his skin. It should have been beautiful. It was horrifying. Kira finished uploading diagnostic data and turned to him. We have less than an hour before Earth's fleet gets this signal. When they do, they'll want to contain you. Mason gave a hollow laugh. Contain me? What are they going to use? A bigger jar. Her lips tightened. They don't see you as a person anymore, Mason. They see you as a threat. Or worse, as an opportunity. He looked away. Funny, that's how I see myself too. Before she could respond, the air around them rippled. The outpost lights dimmed, flickering in rhythm with his heartbeat. Mason winced. It's waking up again, he muttered. The thing inside me. Every time I think I've buried it, it claws back out. Kira moved closer, her expression softer now. Then stop fighting it blindly. Let me help you understand it. If it's feeding on belief, maybe you can control that. Control belief? Mason said with a snort. That's like trying to stop gossip on the internet. She didn't smile. Then maybe redirect it. If you can change what people believe about you, maybe you can change what it becomes. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right, Professor Hopeful. Let's test your theory before the universe decides I'm overdue for smiting. They began working through the night. Kira linked him to a neural interface, designed to monitor energy fluctuations in his brain while he focused on specific thoughts. Each time he tried to suppress the divine pulse, the readings spiked higher. When he tried to channel it calmly, it quieted, only slightly, but enough to notice. It reacts to intent, Kira murmured. It mirrors you. When you're angry, it burns. When you're calm, it listens. Great, he said dryly. All I have to do to save the galaxy is meditate. Their fragile progress was interrupted by a low rumble from outside. The outpost trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. Kira ran to the viewport and froze. A fleet of ships had dropped out of warp, sleek, glowing vessels covered in symbols of the Thrakul faith. They found us, she whispered. The main screen lit up, showing an alien priest draped in ceremonial armor, its eyes blazing with righteous fury. Hail Kor, it intoned, your blasphemy ends today. Return the divine spark or be unmade. Mason rolled his eyes. I'd say nice to see you again, but you all look like the same glowstick cult to me. The priest didn't react. Prepare for annihilation. Missiles streaked toward the outpost, their trails lighting the dark sky. Mason grabbed Kira's arm. Run. They sprinted down the corridor as explosions tore through the walls. The facility shuddered violently. Kira stumbled, and Mason pulled her upright, dragging her toward the hangar. Behind them, fire blossomed like a sunrise. They reached a small maintenance craft and scrambled aboard. Mason slammed the controls, and the ship roared to life. As they lifted off, debris rained down, and the outpost collapsed into the burning void below. Through the viewport, the Thrakul fleet closed in, surrounding them. "Any bright ideas?" Kira shouted. Mason's mind buzzed with energy. He could feel the divine pulse building inside, begging for release. "Just one. You're not going to like it." He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. The ship's controls melted away in his perception, replaced by a vision of the universe stretching out before him. He saw every enemy vessel, every weapon, every heartbeat of the beings aiming to destroy him. He reached out, not with his hands, but with something deeper. The light exploded from his body, spreading through the cockpit, out into the void. For a moment everything stopped. The Thrakul ships froze mid-flight, suspended in a golden web. Then, one by one, their weapons powered down. The priests appeared on his screen again, but this time they were kneeling. "Hail Kor," they whispered in unison. "We see the truth. You are not the thief. You are the vessel of judgment." Kira stared at him, terrified. "You didn't just stop them, Mason. You converted them." He slumped back in his seat, breathing hard. "Yeah. That wasn't the plan." Before they could react, another signal appeared on the scanners, massive, ancient, and pulsing with power far beyond anything they'd seen. Kira's eyes widened as the image formed on the screen, a colossal entity emerging from the edge of space, wings made of plasma, voice resonating through the void. It was the real champion, the one he thought he'd destroyed. "Mason," Kira whispered, "that's it. The true divine champion." The being's voice filled their minds. "You have carried my spark long enough, mortal. It is time to return what is mine." Mason gritted his teeth, clutching the edge of the console. "Sorry, no refunds. Store policy." The champion raised a hand, and the space around them warped, bending reality. Mason's ship began to tear apart molecule by molecule. He screamed as his vision fractured, half in the cockpit, half in a realm of light. The champion stood before him now, not as an image, but as presence, a being of pure purpose. "You mock creation," it said. "You twist faith into weaponry." Mason met its gaze. "Faith was already a weapon. I just pulled the trigger." The champion struck, energy crashing through him. Every nerve burned. His memories flashed before him. His first mission, the faces of soldiers he'd lost, the silence that followed every shot he ever fired. Beneath it all, he felt something new. The power within him, pushing back. The divine pulse wasn't just the champion's. It was his now too. Kira's voice broke through the storm. "Mason, fight it. If it takes the energy, it'll destroy everything connected to it, including you." He staggered forward, shouting over the chaos. "Then we don't let it choose. We end it together." He raised his hands, and light erupted from him, clashing with the champion's energy. The collision split the sky, tearing rifts in space. Planets shuddered from the shockwaves. The Thrakul fleet scattered, powerless before the storm of faith and fury. Kira watched from the ship, tears streaming down her face. "Mason, stop. You'll kill yourself." He smiled faintly, voice barely audible over the roar. "Wouldn't be the first bad decision I've made." For a heartbeat, the two forces were equal. Then Mason roared, channeling every ounce of will he had left. The light consumed the champion, shredding it into a cascade of fading energy. Silence followed, heavy, final. The universe was silent, or so it seemed. Kira floated in the half-destroyed cockpit, staring at Mason's motionless body. His chest rose and fell weakly, but the golden glow that had once burned beneath his skin was dim, like a dying star clinging to life. The ship drifted between the remains of the Thrakul fleet, fragments of divine energy flickering like embers around them. She whispered his name, hoping for a response, but all she heard was the distant hum of the engines struggling to hold power. Then, without warning, the light around Mason's body flared. It wasn't violent this time. It was soft, almost gentle, and before Kira could react, he vanished. She screamed, reaching out too late, her hand passing through empty air. The ship's systems flickered, screens filling with static before dissolving into white light. And then she wasn't in the cockpit anymore. She was standing in an impossible place, a vast cathedral made of thought and starlight, its walls breathing like a living being. Mason stood at the center, facing away from her. Around him, shadows twisted into shapes that looked like memories. "Mason," she called. He didn't turn. His voice came back calm, distant. "You're not really here, Kira. I think I died again. Or maybe I never stopped." She moved closer, her boots echoing on the shifting floor. "Where are we?" He looked up at the endless expanse above them. Inside the Mind Cathedral. That's what it called itself. The place where gods are built. Before she could respond, a figure emerged from the light. It was the champion, the true one, reborn not in rage this time, but in form so human it was almost familiar. Its eyes glowed with compassion that felt cruel. "You did what no mortal has done," the being said. "You struck at divinity and survived. You have earned an audience." Mason glared at it. "An audience? What am I, a cosmic comedian?" The being smiled faintly. "In a way, yes. You made the universe laugh. You defied its oldest rule, that faith must always serve power." Mason crossed his arms, his voice low. "You talk like belief is some kind of weapon." The being moved closer, its form shifting with each step, sometimes human, sometimes monstrous, sometimes radiant. "Belief is the sharpest blade in existence. Entire civilizations rise and fall on what they choose to worship. You've seen it. You were a soldier, weren't you? Every bullet you fired came from belief. Belief in orders, in cause, in survival. Faith is just belief given a crown." Mason's jaw tightened. "So that's it. All this chaos, all these people dying, just because you wanted to keep your crown." The champion tilted its head. "Not wanted. Needed. I was created by their worship. Without it, I fade. When they stopped believing, I died. And then you came, full of disbelief so absolute it became its own faith. You became the counterweight." Kira watched them, silent, as light rippled between them like an invisible tide. Mason stepped forward. "So what, you're saying I'm your replacement?" "You are both my killer and my heir," the champion said softly. "The universe cannot exist without belief. It simply shifts to new symbols. You are the new symbol, Mason Hale, the god of skepticism, the divine question." Mason laughed bitterly. "That's poetic. The man who doesn't believe in anything becomes something people believe in." Kira moved beside him. "There has to be another way," she said. "He's not a god. He's human." The champion's gaze turned to her. "And yet humanity's hunger for meaning will not stop. They already pray to him. The energy flows through every corner of the galaxy. To end it now would unravel thought itself." Mason felt the pulse inside him again, stronger than ever. It wasn't just energy. It was connection, the weight of 1,000,000,000 minds pressing against his own. He could hear their prayers, their fears, their hopes, all tangled into one overwhelming chorus. He clutched his head, gritting his teeth. "Make it stop." "It cannot stop," the champion said. "Unless you destroy the idea of belief itself." He dropped to one knee, the floor rippling beneath him like liquid light. "Then maybe that's what I'll do." Kira reached for him. "Mason, don't. You can't fight the entire universe." He looked up at her, eyes glowing again but different now, steadier, clearer. "I'm not fighting it. I'm rewriting it." The champion frowned. "You would destroy yourself. Every mind that believes in you will pull you apart." Mason stood, his voice steady. "Then I'll give them something else to believe in." He took a step forward, and the light around him flared brighter, expanding outward. Images filled the space. The memories of war, of soldiers laughing between battles, of people holding on to hope even when logic said they shouldn't. Mason's voice echoed through the cathedral. "You said faith keeps you alive. But it also keeps people chained. Maybe belief isn't supposed to be about worship. Maybe it's about choice. The champion's form flickered. You would change the foundation of reality itself. Yeah, Mason said, smirking faintly. I've been meaning to redecorate. The light became blinding. Kira shielded her eyes as the walls of the cathedral cracked, revealing stars beyond. Mason reached out toward the champion, and for the first time, the divine being looked afraid. What are you doing? It demanded. I'm giving them a choice, he said. They can believe in gods, or they can believe in themselves. He thrust his hand forward, and the energy surged between them. The cathedral exploded into a storm of light and shadow, fragments of memory spiraling through the void. The champion screamed, its voice dissolving into echoes. Then, slowly, the storm began to fade. When Kira opened her eyes again, she was standing on the deck of a ship that wasn't hers, surrounded by silence. Mason stood beside her, his glow fading to nothing. The stars outside looked different, brighter somehow. He exhaled, tired but alive. I think I broke theology, he said. She smiled weakly. So what now? Are you still a god? He shook his head. No. Just a guy who made a very complicated wish. But as he spoke, he felt something stir faintly within him, a whisper softer than breath. It wasn't the champion's voice this time. It was his own, multiplied across the stars, repeating the same words. Not worship, not fear. Just belief in possibility. Kira looked out at the horizon of space. You think they'll ever stop worshipping you? Mason gave a quiet laugh. Probably not. But maybe now they'll worship the right things. They stood together in silence, watching the universe rebuild itself. Somewhere, deep in the cosmos, new stars were being born, fueled not by divine will but by the simple, stubborn persistence of life. And for the first time since the chaos began, Mason felt something like peace. Then, faintly, the comms crackled. A voice came through, one he didn't recognize. To the one who freed the faithless, it said. The galaxy awaits your next command. Mason closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. No commands, he murmured. Just choices. And with that, the light around him faded completely, leaving only the man who had shot a god and found himself instead. Kira's body was still trembling when she opened her eyes again. The cockpit lights were gone, the stars had disappeared, and there was nothing, only white emptiness stretching infinitely in every direction. Her breath came out slow and heavy, every sound swallowed by the strange silence. Then she saw him. Mason stood about 10 meters away, his body outlined by a dim golden aura. His back was turned, and his voice was calm, almost detached when he spoke. You shouldn't be here, Kira. She walked toward him, her steps echoing faintly on an invisible floor. You keep saying that, but I never listen. Where are we now? He didn't answer immediately. His head tilted slightly, eyes fixed on something beyond the horizon. It called this place the Mind Cathedral, he said finally. A space built from faith itself. Every belief, every prayer, every lie ever told about the divine, it all ends up here. Kira glanced around. As her vision adjusted, she began to see faint shapes forming in the light. Giant arches made of stars. Walls made of whispers. Faces flickering in and out of existence like forgotten dreams. The air hummed softly, alive with unspoken thoughts. So this is what's inside you? She asked quietly. Mason turned to her then. His eyes glowed faintly, gold bleeding into gray. No. This is what's inside everyone. I'm just the unlucky guy standing in the middle of it. Before she could reply, a low rumble spread through the white expanse. The light darkened, colors shifting into deep blues and purples. Something vast was approaching, a shape too large to comprehend. The air rippled with pressure as the divine champion appeared again, reborn and radiant, its voice echoing through the cathedral. You should not exist, mortal. The spark was not meant for your kind. Mason squared his shoulders, exhaustion written across his face. Yeah, I keep hearing that. You ever consider maybe your system's overdue for an upgrade? The being's eyes narrowed. You mock what you do not understand. Oh, I understand just fine, Mason said. You live on belief. You feed off it like it's oxygen. Without worship, you vanish. You're not a god. You're a parasite. The champion's form flared with anger, its voice shaking the walls. Faith gives meaning to existence. Without it, life collapses into chaos. Or maybe it gets free, Mason shot back. Maybe meaning isn't something handed down from above. Maybe it's something we make. Kira watched the two of them circle each other like predators. Every word Mason spoke seemed to make the air vibrate. The light around him pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as if the entire cathedral was listening. The champion extended a hand, energy gathering in its palm like a forming sun. You cannot bear the weight of creation, it said. You will drown in your own defiance. Mason stepped forward. Then let's see who drowns first. The blast came like the birth of a star. Kira was thrown backward, her vision blinding with gold and violet light. When she looked again, the two figures were locked in combat. Mason's body glowed brighter with every strike, his movements erratic but desperate. The champion's attacks tore through the air like storms, each one loud enough to shake the fabric of the place itself. Kira tried to reach him, but a barrier of light rose between them. She screamed his name, her voice drowned out by the sound of colliding power. Mason staggered under the force of a blow that sent him skidding backward. The champion raised its arm for a final strike. You cannot kill belief, it thundered. You are sustained by it even now. Mason wiped the blood from his lip and smiled weakly. Then maybe it's time belief learns to stand on its own. He threw his rifle aside and spread his arms. The energy within him erupted outward, a flood of pure willpower. Kira shielded her face as waves of light consumed the cathedral. The walls cracked, constellations shattered, and the very concept of space trembled. Within that chaos, Mason's voice rang clear. You said gods are born from faith. Fine. Then I'll show you a god that doesn't need followers. The champion screamed, a sound like the end of eternity. The light devoured it, folding the being into itself until nothing remained but a fading shimmer. When the brightness dimmed, the cathedral was gone. In its place was a void, calm, silent, waiting. Mason floated in the center, body half translucent now, his outline flickering like a candle in the wind. Kira stumbled forward, catching him before he drifted away. Mason, stop. You're burning out. He smiled faintly, eyes tired but peaceful. It's not burning, Kira. It's balance. Every belief needs a counterweight. Every light casts a shadow. Maybe this time, I get to be both. Tears filled her eyes. You can't just disappear. We need you. He reached up and touched her cheek gently. No. You need the choice. That's what this whole mess was about. Faith without choice is control. Belief without doubt is slavery. If I stay, it all starts again. The air around them began to fracture, tiny cracks of gold spreading outward like veins of light. She held him tighter, refusing to let go. There has to be another way. There always is, he said softly. But this one's mine. He leaned forward and whispered something she couldn't quite hear, and then the light consumed him. The cracks expanded until the void itself shattered, spilling them back into the real universe. Kira gasped as she woke up in the wreckage of their ship. The stars outside were quiet again, the Thrakul fleet long gone. Mason was nowhere to be seen. Only a faint golden shimmer lingered on her skin, fading with every heartbeat. She stumbled to the controls, but the systems were dead. The only sound was the whisper of wind through the broken hull. Then, from the corner of her eye, she saw something move, a reflection in the viewport. It was Mason, or something like him, smiling faintly before fading into starlight. She reached out a trembling hand, but he was already gone. Days passed before rescue arrived. When they found her, she was silent, still staring at the stars. The rescuers brought her aboard their ship, asking questions she couldn't answer. What happened to the divine energy? Where did the god go? Why was her DNA now resonating with low-frequency cosmic radiation? She only said one thing. He gave it back to them. To all of us. Months later, the broadcasts began. Across hundreds of worlds, people reported hearing the same voice in their dreams, a calm, human voice saying the same words. Believe in something. Anything. Just make sure it's yours. The faiths of countless species began to shift, not toward one god, but toward a single idea, that divinity could exist within choice itself. Temples changed, prayers changed, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the Thrakul priests laid down their weapons. The universe felt quieter, as if it were finally exhaling after centuries of holding its breath.